له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأن سيدنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله أدى الأمانة ونصح للأمة وجاهد في الله حتى أتاه اليقين. أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, today's khutbah is about a topic that is very dear to me. It's a subject that I've invested the past 20 plus years of my life working on, working with, or working for. It is a subject that has been highlighted in the agenda of all Islamic organizations, all the masajid. It is what comes to mind when it comes to the biggest concern and greatest hope for us as parents. Today's khutbah is about our youth. And it does sound like a cliche topic to talk about. It does sound like a soundbite that we use conveniently whenever we have a fundraising event or whenever we set an agenda for an institution that is serving a community. It does sound like an awesome strategic goal for any organization. But today, I'm going to talk about this word in the context of the Quranic perspective. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about this very critical segment of our population. But then at the end, I'm going to talk about how this institution is taking specific action to address the needs and to realize some of the potential of this particular age group of ours. It is very interesting that in the English language, the age group of adolescents is called minors. The same word that is used to express how tiny a matter is. Minor. They're still minors. Anyone who is under a specific age group up to 18 years of age is considered a minor. And what that creates is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you tell someone that you're a loser, then he or she will become a loser. Whether this person is a loser or not. I remember one day I was giving a lecture about leadership. And a young man told me that you sound inspirational and all. But I have to say this. You're wrong about me. I'm not a leader. I said, how come? He said, I'm just not. I said, you're absolutely right. And he was kind of like slightly offended. He was taken back by my statement. Like, it's okay for him to say that I'm not a leader, but it's not okay for me to say it to him, especially that I'm being inspirational and all. And he said, you know what? The reason why I'm saying that is because you just said it. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, let's contrast the language that we use. And by the way, the word minor is reflected in the way that the community and the society treats that age group. So the society calls upon that age group whenever there is a tiny, tedious responsibility. We have a fundraising event where we need our youth/minors to come and fold the chairs and sweep the floor. And maybe distribute some postcards for that event. Before I mention to you, before I talk about the Quranic perspective on that word, I have to bring up a story. One day I was invited to an Islamic center that shall remain unnamed, but it's not in the state of Texas, elsewhere. And one of the chief complaints that the board had about the youth was that their youth were actually not interested or not engaged in the affairs of the masjid. So I asked the board if I would have the opportunity to sit down with these youth and have converse with them. I asked them a simple question: why are you not involved? What's wrong with you guys? The board invested all this wealth, all this money. The community spent that much money on building that many facilities, and you guys don't show up to any of the events that they set up for you? And their response was very simple. Well, the reason why we don't respond is that because we know if we get a call from the imam, if we get a call from the board, it's because they want us to clean the floor, to sweep the floor, and we don't mind that. But when this is the only thing we're invited to do, then that speaks for what they think of us. Contrast that to the kind of responsibilities we're given when we step out of the masjid. We are part of the student councils of our universities, of our high schools. We are part of these fraternity groups. We are part of this and that. But when we come to the masjid, the only role our community, the only kind of responsibility that our community gives us is the tedious stuff that would almost add up to child labor, free child labor. But my brothers and sisters, it doesn't take us more than just opening the index of the Quran to read how significant, to realize how significant that age group is. According to Allah's words. And who knows whose creation? Who knows our creation more than our Creator Himself? So you look at the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And you know the story when Ibrahim alayhi salam was born to a society that was infiltrated with social injustice, that was plagued with a culture that is stained with insanity and indecency. His own father was involved in the most indecent act ever, creating gods that people would glorify. Yet Ibrahim alayhi salam grew up in that society, refusing the status quo and challenging it at the cost of his own life. So when that festivity took place and his people left the city to go out and celebrate whatever they wanted to celebrate, he took advantage of that opportunity and he went down to wherever that temple is and he smashed all the idols. And he hung the axe on the neck of the biggest of them. And when people asked, who could have committed such a crime? The response was, قالوا سمعنا فتى يذكرهم يقال له إبراهيم. We heard of a fata bashing them, and he's so called Ibrahim. The word fata here is not the word rajul. It's not the word طفل. It's fata. It's an age group that's in between. Ibrahim alayhi salam was still in his teens when he decided to challenge the status quo and destroy, physically and metaphorically, the symbols of indecency, the symbols of disrespect of human intelligence that dominated that culture. You open the index of the Quran and you see a surah in the middle of the Quran, Surah Al-Kahf, describing the story and the legacy of a group of young men who, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, challenged the status quo and stood up for the tyranny of their time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran that the people are going to disagree about the details of the story. سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم سيقولون ثلاثة رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون خمسة سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون سبعة وثامنهم كلبهم قل ربي أعلم بعدتهم. Don't worry if there were three and the fourth was their dog, or there were four and the fifth was their dog, or Allah knows their numbers. That's irrelevant to you. This is not the moral of the story. This is not a movie. This is not a bedtime story. This is not for your amusement and entertainment. There is a moral of the story that I want you to capture. قل الله أعلم بعدتهم ما يعلمهم إلا قليل. The ayah. But then, what's even more interesting is that we don't know their names. We don't know their names. We don't know the names of the actors. That this story is inspired by a true story. It is a true story. In movies, they at least give you the names of the actors. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't give us any details, but He does give us one very important information. إِنَّهُمْ فِتْيَةٌ آمَنُوا بِرَبِّهِمْ وَزِدْنَاهُمْ هُدًى. And what does the word fitya mean? It's a plural of the word fata. The same word that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described Ibrahim alayhi salam with, but it's a plural format of it. My brothers and sisters, there is a reason where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that these young men, were at the age of who we so-called minors. Humanity did not degrade. The capacity of that age group did not deteriorate with time. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The acts of greatness that Ibrahim alayhi salam was capable and qualified to do, the ability that he had to change the course of history, was not limited by the lack of prefix, the titles that he did not have. He was not an uncle. He was not a PhD. He was not an MD. He did not have a bachelor's degree. He did not graduate from Harvard. But he was a young man of greatness. See, greatness does not care for your age. Greatness cares for your heart. My brothers and sisters, the examples of the Quran, of what the Quran, how the Quran speaks of our youth, is a subject for a much longer presentation. A much longer presentation. The examples of what the Prophet ﷺ and how the Prophet ﷺ interacted with that age group is just fascinating. It is beyond one's comprehension. It is incredible. It is a recipe for greatness, not only for the individuals, for the youth, but it is a recipe for greatness for the entire community, for the entire society. I was once sitting in a meeting where a group of activists and community leaders were discussing, how we should tackle the youth issues and what topics we should address. I said, my brothers and sisters, here comes the challenge, here comes the problem, why we are not able to tackle these youth issues. Because our priority is to tackle their issues instead of benefiting from their abilities. It's a different perspective altogether. So instead of thinking of the topics that the youth are going through, let's change the course of conversation. Instead of talking about the negative, approaching youth issues from the negative perspective, let's look at it from the positive perspective. When the Prophet ﷺ made a dua, Allahumma a'azz al-Islam bi ahabbi al-umarayn ilayk. Oh Allah, dignify, send Islam dignity, strengthen Islam with the more beloved of the two Umars to you. The first one was Abu Jahl, the pharaoh of this ummah. And the second one was Umar ibn al-Khattab. That was before Umar radiallahu anh became Umar radiallahu anh. When he was Umar ibn al-Khattab, one of the strongest enemies of Islam at that time in Jahiliyyah. Why would the Prophet ﷺ make such a beautiful dua to two of the worst enemies of Islam at that time? Well, it is because the Prophet ﷺ was a treasure hunter. He saw the positive in each one of these two. خِيَارُكُمْ فِي الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ خِيَارُكُمْ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ إِذَا فَقِهُوا. That the best of you in Jahiliyyah will be the best of you in Islam if they have fiqh, if they understand, if they get it, if they get the points, if they understand their purpose in life. They have a solid engine. There are some amazing qualities in them. And the Prophet ﷺ, being the treasure hunter he saw the positive, the great asset that these people had, these two men had. And we've seen the result of that when Umar ibn Khattab became a Muslim radiallahu anhu. He became Umar. This is the exact approach that we need to follow with our youth, my brothers and sisters. Focusing on what they have to bring to the table and telling them with words and action that they matter. I promise you that I'm going to mention to you what this masjid is about to do for youth work. Alhamdulillah, there has been a lot of amazing work that has taken place for youth work within this community. MashaAllah, YM has been doing great work here in the community for many years. There were many youth programs, many health programs. We have ISI. We are very proud of all the institutions that have been serving our youth and our students. With that said, this masjid is now taking on a major undertake, which is to restructuring or representing youth work in this community. And it's going to be a sustainable, impactful, long-term ecosystem that we're going to be developing for our youth in this community. And it's a process that's going to engage our youth in it from the very get-go. So we're going to collect the feedback of our youth. We're going to hear from them what the perceptions of their own reality is, what their perception of the solutions of their problems are. We're going to create a narrative and write a story using their own words and using their own understanding of their own reality. We're going to hear from the parents. We're going to hear from the community members who are not parents. We're going to hear from the leadership of the institutions. We're going to hear from the educators. We're going to hear from everyone through a very methodic and systematic way. You should be getting a survey, a needs assessment survey. You might be invited to focus groups. It's going to be an elaborate process. It's not going to take forever. But then after that, we're going to share the story with the rest of the community. And we're going to have a call for action, where we're going to have committees that are going to work on launching specific programs that we hope that will impact the lives of so many youth for so long, for so many more years to come. So this is just a teaser, but more details are going to be announced and more details are going to be shared with you in the very near future. My role in this entire process is just as a consultant. But the community or the board hired Brother Yusuf Jaber to be the youth coordinator, but we are not going to be the only ones running the show. This program is going to pull in tens, if not hundreds of volunteers and others. And it's going to be owned by our youth and by our volunteers, by the parents, by everyone in this community. We're very excited about that, inshallah. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put barakah and tawfiq in the effort that is being done in this community and in every other community. There is so much potential, my brothers and sisters. I know that the challenges are immense. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. Those who strive consistently and persistently, who do not give up, and they always rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah are going to be guided. It's just a matter of time. As a parent of 5, raising 5 of my children in a very challenging time, I cannot afford to have hopelessness. I can only have my dua connecting me to the source of creation, the source of power. At the end of the day, the guidance of our youth is not in our hands. It's in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we are expected to do our utmost best, to be as intentional and as focused as we possibly can. I'm going to conclude with an invitation to all of you to attend our ICI's fundraising event that's going to happen on the 29th of February. In a little bit more than a week. The information can be found on the postcards, and that looks like this one. So please make sure to support ICI's amazing work, inshallah. And I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put barakah and tawfiq in all what we're doing for His sake. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم فاستغفروه يغفر لكم ويا فوز المستغفرين. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا كما أمر وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له إرغاما بمن جحد به وكفر. عباد الله اتقوا الله كما أمر وانتهوا عما نهاكم عنه وزجر واعلموا أن الله قد أمركم بأمر عظيم بدأ فيه بنفسه وثنى بملائكة قدسه إذ قال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت اللهم على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا برحمتك شر ما قدرت وقضيت فإنك تقضي ولا يقضى عليك إنه لا يعز من عاديت ولا يذل من واليت تباركت ربنا وتعاليت فلك الحمد على ما قضيت ولك الشكر على ما أنعمت به علينا وأوليت. نستغفرك اللهم من جميع الذنوب والخطايا ونتوب إليك ونؤمن بك ونتوكل عليك. عباد الله إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. وأقم الصلاة.